For years, the women who dated Prince Andrew before the Epstein scandal erupted stayed quiet. They maintained dignified silence while the media circus swirled. They protected their privacy, avoided the headlines, and let Andrew face the consequences alone. But silence has limits. And when those Epstein files were released, the ones with all those emails, all that documentation showing the gap between Andrew's public story and private reality, one of his ex-girlfriends decided she'd had enough of staying quiet. What she said left people absolutely stunned. Not because it was vicious or vindictive, but because of what it revealed about the man behind the title, the relationship behind closed doors, and what she actually knew all along. Today, we're breaking down why her words matter, what they tell us about Andrew that we didn't know before, and why timing is everything when it comes to truth. Hello viewers, before we dive into this newly released emails, please take a moment and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support allows us to update you with more fascinating news from the British monarchy. First, let's establish who we're talking about, because context matters here. We're discussing someone who dated Andrew during a significant period of his life. Not a brief fling, but a real relationship. Someone who would have been around during social events, who would have met his friends, who would have seen how he operated when the cameras weren't rolling. For legal and privacy reasons, I'm going to be careful about specific identifying details, but what matters is this. She was in a position to observe. She wasn't on the periphery of Andrew's life, she was in it. And that makes her perspective incredibly valuable. Now, she could have spoken up years ago. She could have sold her story to tabloids for serious money. She could have written a tell-all book. But she didn't. She maintained her dignity and privacy, even as Andrew's reputation collapsed around him. So when someone like that, someone who had every opportunity to cash in and chose not to, finally decides to speak, you need to pay attention. Because whatever she's saying, it's not about money or fame. It's something else entirely. According to reports following the Epstein file release, her comment cut right to the heart of the matter. She didn't attack Andrew's character in general terms. She didn't make vague accusations. Instead, she made a specific observation that completely undermines his entire defense. The essence of her statement, and I'm paraphrasing the reports here, was about Andrew's awareness and judgment. While Andrew has consistently portrayed himself as naive, as someone who didn't really understand what Epstein was doing, as someone whose only mistake was being too trusting, his ex-girlfriend painted a very different picture. She suggested that the Andrew she knew was far more aware, far more calculating, and far less naive than he's claimed to be. That his I didn't know defense doesn't match the person she dated. That the bumbling, socially awkward persona he presented in that BBC interview wasn't the real Andrew. Because Andrew's entire legal and PR strategy has been built on plausible deniability. I was there, but I didn't see anything. I knew him, but I didn't know about that. I visited, but I had no idea. His defense relies on people believing he's the kind of person who could be around Epstein and somehow remain oblivious to what was happening. But someone who actually dated him, who actually knew him intimately, is saying, that's not who he is. He's not naive. He doesn't miss things. He's more aware than he's letting on. She stayed silent through the initial allegations, through the Virginia Giuffre lawsuit, through that disastrous Newsnight interview, through Andrew being stripped of his military titles and royal patronages. Through all of it, she said nothing. And then the Epstein files were released. Those emails showing the ongoing relationship, the coordination, the comfort level between Andrew and Epstein even after Epstein's conviction. Documentation that proved Andrew's public narrative was incomplete at best. I think that's what changed things. It's one thing to stay silent when it's your word against someone else's. It's another when there's documentary evidence proving that the person is lying, and you know from personal experience that the lies go deeper than even the documents show. There's also something powerful about watching someone continue to deceive when you know the truth. It weighs on you. At some point, staying silent starts to feel like complicity. And maybe, just maybe, seeing those files made her realize that her silence was being interpreted as support. That by not speaking, she might be inadvertently helping Andrew maintain a false narrative. Whatever her reasons, the timing sends a message. The evidence has crossed a threshold where staying quiet is no longer an option. Let's talk about what her statement reveals, because it's about more than just one relationship. First, it tells us that Andrew is very good at managing his image. The bumbling, awkward prince we saw in that BBC interview? That might be a performance. The "I don't remember" and "I can't recall" responses? Those might be strategic, not evidence of a poor memory or lack of awareness. Think about what it takes to date a member of the royal family. You're entering a world of protocol, scrutiny, and very careful image management. Anyone in Andrew's life would have seen how he navigates public perception versus private reality. They would know which parts of his public persona are genuine and which are carefully constructed. Second, her willingness to speak now suggests that what she observed during their relationship was significant enough that she feels a moral obligation to correct the record. People don't break years of silence over minor inconsistencies. They do it when the gap between truth and public narrative becomes unconscionable. Third, it reinforces what the emails already showed. Andrew is more sophisticated in his understanding and operation than he's claimed. He's not someone things just happen to. He's an active participant in his own life, making choices and managing outcomes. And here's what really gets me. If his ex-girlfriend could see through the naive act, imagine what everyone else in his circle knew. The royal family, his security detail, his staff, all those people who've stayed silent while Andrew claimed ignorance. You know what this reminds me of? Every time a powerful person's misconduct is finally exposed, and then people start coming forward saying, "Yeah, we all knew." It happened with Harvey Weinstein. People in Hollywood came forward saying the rumors had circulated for decades. It happened with countless politicians, business leaders, religious figures. The pattern is always the same: private knowledge, public silence, until something shifts and the silence becomes untenable. Andrew's ex-girlfriend breaking her silence is part of this pattern. But it's also different in an important way. She's not claiming she witnessed illegal behavior. She's not making accusations of abuse or assault. She's doing something potentially more damaging to Andrew's defense. She's dismantling his characterization of himself. See, Andrew can deny specific allegations. He can say he doesn't remember specific events. He can settle lawsuits without admitting guilt. But he can't deny being the person his ex-girlfriend describes: someone aware, calculating, and far from naive. This is about credibility. And credibility is everything when your defense is built on "I didn't know." The legal cases against Andrew may be resolved, but the court of public opinion is still in session. And testimony from people who actually knew him, who have no apparent axe to grind and nothing to gain, carries enormous weight. So what does this teach us? Because there are lessons here that go way beyond one prince and one scandal. First, character witnesses matter, especially when they're unexpected. The people who know you best can either support your narrative or destroy it. Andrew probably never imagined an ex-girlfriend would speak against his defense strategy, but people who value truth over loyalty can be unpredictable that way. Second, consistency is crucial. If you're going to claim you're one type of person, you better hope the people who've known you privately agree. You can't be shrewd and calculating in relationships, but naive and oblivious in legal defense. People see through that. Third, silence isn't always consent or support. Just because people in your life aren't publicly contradicting you doesn't mean they agree with your version of events. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right moment, or for the evidence to become so overwhelming that staying silent feels wrong. Fourth, the truth has a long timeline. Andrew probably thought that by settling the civil case and stepping back from public life, this was over. But truth doesn't work on the same schedule as legal proceedings or PR campaigns. Sometimes it takes years for the full picture to emerge. Here's what I keep thinking about: how hard it must have been for her to finally speak. Imagine dating someone, having that relationship end, and then years later watching them become embroiled in one of the biggest scandals in modern royal history. You have information that could help people understand what really happened. But speaking up means inserting yourself into a media firestorm. It means facing scrutiny, harassment, possibly legal challenges. The easier choice is always silence. Always. So when someone chooses the harder path, when they decide that truth matters more than comfort, that deserves respect. Whatever you think of her timing or her motivations, she's doing something difficult because she believes it's right. And contrast that with Andrew's choices. He's had multiple opportunities to tell the full truth. The Newsnight interview, the legal proceedings, informal statements through lawyers. Every time, he's chosen the path of minimal admission, maximum deflection. One person in this scenario is choosing courage. The other is choosing cover-up. And we're watching in real time how those different choices play out. Andrew's ex-girlfriend breaking her silence after the Epstein file release isn't just gossip. It's not just another headline in an ongoing scandal. It's a significant development because it comes from someone with direct knowledge, no apparent ulterior motive, and a track record of choosing privacy over publicity. Her jaw-dropping comment, that Andrew is more aware and calculating than he's claimed, cuts straight through his defense strategy. It tells us that the people who actually know him don't buy the narrative he's selling. And it reminds us that truth has a way of emerging from unexpected sources at unexpected times. The people who've stayed quiet for years can only watch dishonesty go unchallenged for so long before something shifts. For those of you in your 20s watching this, pay attention to how people behave when they think no one important is watching. That's who they really are. And remember that the people you date, befriend, and work with today might be the character witnesses in your life tomorrow, for better or worse. For those with more life experience, you've seen this pattern before. Powerful people thinking they've controlled the narrative, only to have someone from their past tell a different story. The faces change, but human nature remains constant. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to this channel. We're committed to looking beyond the headlines, understanding the patterns of power and accountability, and having honest conversations about how truth emerges even when people try to bury it. Hit that notification bell, because we're going to keep following this story and others like it. The Andrew saga isn't over. It's just entering a new chapter where private knowledge is becoming public truth.